Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Alckemy. Today we are going to be taking a look at a plugin that I am so long overdue for reviewing. So sorry to gs-dsp. You guys are awesome. I totally dropped the ball on this one, but I always commit to the things that people send me at some point or another, and we are going to be finally taking a look at the GSP delay. Now, on paper, it's relatively a simple delay that has options between tape and fade, and then you've got all of your standard options with feedback and kill, which is really cool in case if you need to, like kill the signal or whatever. But something that gs-dsp in general really excels at is modulation. As you can see here, I've got this thing that's a 3D motion, and what it actually is a gyroscope. So this is being reviewed on the iPad. It's $10 for iOS. It's $20 for the desktop version. But essentially the 3D motion thing on here is if I pick up my iPad and start moving this around, you can see that this will actually allow me to kind of interact and play with this to whatever parameters I set this X, Y, and Z to. And right now I have that on the dry wet. So I'm going to go ahead and trash that. But let's go ahead and take a listen to what I have before, and then I'll kind of just let this play out and show you some of the main features that gs-dsp quantum delay has. And then you can make a decision whether or not this is something for you. So as you can see, it's probably best used as more of a subtle thing that you can add to things, but there's a lot of parameters that I just messed with that make it really neat. So for example, on the top right corner, I was utilizing the dice button to randomize the entire patch just while I was filing through. And then before that, I utilized the left and right delay in order to kind of create something that seemed a little bit more like tape emulation. So even though it was on fade. But what's cool about that is that kind of with what you would need with a delay in general, you've got a lot of control, especially because you can divvy these up between those individual elements, whether you put it in stereo or you put it in individual left and right modes. And then you can kind of flip the phase with that if you want to. And there's just a ton of modulation options within this as well. So you've got your LFO, follower, dynamical systems that kind of go on these like pre-made shapes, which is really cool. You also have these other things like the 2D LFO, 3D motion, like I talked about at the very beginning, 2D random, regular random, macros. So behind all of that, I think that there's a lot of tools for modulation and typical and also like very experimental sound design, which makes this really fun to use. Now, does it have the most, crazy baked in features or something like, say, Timeless or so? Maybe not necessarily, but it has enough charm on its own to warrant its own feel for its own sound. And if you're using this, especially for like drums or something, or very short delays for metallic sounds, it tends to kind of shine pretty well. So with that being said, I think that this is probably the use case that most people would utilize that for. But if we were to pull up something, I don't know, maybe like a snare or something. Let me just find one that's basic snare designer. That's way too high. Hold on. There we go. That seems to be a little bit more usable. So let's go ahead and throw that quantum in here now. And what we can do is make this really short. And we're going to take the sync off and make this probably just very, very short. So this goes down to 20. And then I think what we can also do is set this to be like on that fine control here. And let's see. Excuse me. Whoa. If we can make this a little bit more sharp. Yeah, so you can hear that you get that really cool flanging sound. And so by adjusting the dry wet on here, you can hear how we're starting to kind of get this really interesting metallic tones that kind of come out of that. And I think that for me personally, like everything, delay is the most powerful effect, like audio effect, in my opinion. And I honestly can probably not get enough of them. And so the more the better with these options and whatnot. And this provides some really interesting things and a really cool way to spin on stuff. And also, the reason why this modulation stuff could be so important, especially if you're on something like iPad, is if you're using this inside of something, say, like Logic Pro or some other kind of DAW, minus Drambo. Drambo would be the only exception. Those DAWs don't have modulators built into them, where these do. And so having that is just as useful or just as important, because if you're trying to do sound design within Logic Pro for iPad or Cubases or something of the sort, then you're going to want to rely on these and have as many tools as you possibly can in order to kind of like make up for things that provide these workflows like how I do, which would be modular workflows. Or even sound design things that's just as simple as adding to these snares and stuff, So in any case, I don't think that this is the most like in-depth plugin that I've ever done. And if you're familiar with other gs-dsp plugins, you'll know that they have like, the crossover between like A and B, which you can kind of fade in between. They've got the preset savers on there, which is cool. The baked in tooltips are really nice. So if you don't know what something does, then we can kind of hold over that and then we'll tell you what it does at the bottom, which is pretty awesome. That's kind of a slept on thing. You saw that I was manipulating the filters on here, so you can also have like the left and right, band passes on both, and you can set the filter amount and then change the resonance, which is pretty neat. And then just about everything on here, I don't think there's actually anything on this page that cannot be modulated, which is really cool. So anyways, it is a delay. It is another delay. But I definitely wanted to take a look at it, show it to my audience, especially for those people that are interested in iPad or iOS stuff. And big thanks to gs-dsp for sending this to me. I am so sorry that it took so long. But yeah, definitely give it a try and let me know what you all think. And I will see you in the next one.